Hello, welcome back to Justice Redesign. I'm Steve Teskey, retired judge, and today's Thanksgiving 2025. And I want to talk about something we often treat like a seasonal ornament, brought out once a year, admired, then boxed up till next November. And that's gratitude. Not the obligatory kind your grandmother demanded before you cut into the sweet potato pie, not the polite thank you scribbled on autopilot. I'm talking about the kind of gratitude that psychologists call a moral emotion, one that can, reshape our behavior, our relationships, and I believe even our civic life. Recently I listened to On Point, a podcast on WBUR in Boston. It's an interview with psychologist Dr. David DeSanto, or DeSteno, and whose research reveals something, quietly, I think, radical. Feeling grateful changes how we treat people. It makes us more patient, more honest, more generous. It can even improve sleep, calm stress, and strengthen the immune system. And as I listened, a thought struck me, and it struck me pretty hard. If gratitude can change individuals this much, what could it do for a country starving for decency? What could it do for a democracy where political disagreements have become personal vendettas? Today's not a sermon. It's not even a lecture. It's an invitation. See, gratitude is not happiness. It's connection. Let me explain, or let Dr. DeSteno explain. He says it's something that's profound. Happiness can be a solo act. Gratitude never is a solo act. You see, he said gratitude is the emotion that we feel when we recognize there's goodness in our life, but that it didn't come from us. It is by definition a relational emotion. It binds us together. It reminds us we're not alone. In a society increasingly built around individualism and algorithm-driven outrage, gratitude is, ironically, the most countercultural thing we can practice. So, why gratitude makes us better humans? Well, the research is astonishing. It lowers blood pressure and stress. It boosts the immune system and sleep. It signals to your brain, hey, you matter. You're connected. It makes you more honest, even when you can get away with cheating. And remarkably, it makes generosity spill over beyond the person you're grateful to. It makes you help strangers. In one experiment, students who were helped by an actor in the lab later helped a stranger with no connection to the original act, simply because they were still feeling grateful. Gratitude spreads like a benign social contagion. Imagine if our politics worked like that. So let's talk about when gratitude is weaponized. You see, Dr. DeSteno makes another point that we cannot ignore. Gratitude, when forced, becomes a tool of manipulation. He discussed authoritarian leaders who demand expressions of thanks as a way to reinforce power. And yes, he did reference in his podcast interview President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance's Oval Office meeting with President Zelensky. You remember that some time back, okay, where Trump told Zelensky, quote, you got to be more thankful. Without us, you don't have any cards, end quote. And DeSteno explained what it really is creating a power differential when one does that to another human being. He said, quote, gratitude only works when it makes you feel valued, not exploited, end quote. Now, this is important. Real gratitude cannot be extracted by threat or demanded as a tribute. as what happened in the Oval Office. When gratitude becomes a weapon, democracy becomes collateral damage. So, what is it that gratitude can do for a divided nation? And this is where it struck me hard. And this is what I hope my message how it will resonate with you, okay, is how it can help us in today's divisions, many of them very contentious in our country today. You see, let's take DeSanto's science and apply it to our civic duty, our civic life. If gratitude increases patience, if it reduces anger, if it lifts generosity, if it softens the negativity bias we all carry, then what happens when gratitude becomes a daily habit in a community, in a state, in our nation? Could it lower the volume of our political shouting? Could it reduce the reflex to villainize people who disagree with us? Could it help us recover the idea that disagreement is not treason? That opponents are not enemies? That we are still one people? Look, as someone who has spent his life in courtrooms, I can tell you this. People rise to the level of the dignity that you give them. Gratitude is one of the most powerful forms of dignity. You cannot practice gratitude and contempt at the same time. They are mutually exclusive emotional states. If that's not a civic virtue, I don't know what is. So let's talk about gratitude as a daily discipline, not a holiday performance. Dr. DeStanto said something else that should matter to all of us. Gratitude only works while you're feeling it. It's not a character trait, it's a practice. And the mistake many people make, saving it for the end of the day, or worse, saving it for Thanksgiving. He talked about religious traditions, like Judaism's 100 blessings a day, as models of what he called microdosing gratitude throughout the day. Think about that. No one big moment, but lots of small ones every day. In a polarized country, we don't need one big national epiphany. We need millions of tiny ones. So let me give you my personal reflection. When I heard Dr. DeStanto's interview, something in me stirred. Because every day I see how we talk to each other in this country, how we label, dismiss, demean, how we treat ideological differences as moral failures, how we forget that we share a nation, a destiny, and a responsibility to one another. And I found myself thinking, well, what if the antidote to our national anger is not more argument, but more gratitude? Not gratitude for policies, not gratitude for politicians, gratitude for each other. For the neighbor who disagrees with you politically, but would still lend you her ladder. For the coworker who votes differently, but shows up for you when your spouse is in the hospital. For the immigrant family whose faith or language is different, but whose presence enriches the community. For the LGBTQ teen who teaches the adults around them what courage looks like. For the elderly veteran waving at the kids from his porch. For the teacher who buys school supplies with their own paycheck. For the grocery clerk who helps you when you're struggling with bags in the rain. And yes, for the friend, the spouse, the child, the stranger who reminds you that in a vast and complicated world, you matter. So here's the Thanksgiving invitation. All right, this is my challenge, and it's a challenge to myself. It's about being self-disciplined. Don't list what you're grateful for. List who you're grateful to. Say it out loud. Tell them. Send the text. Make the call. Write the note. Open the door. Offer the kindness. Pay the gratitude forward. And tomorrow, please don't stop. Because if gratitude can change a single human brain in measurable biological ways, it can change a nation of 330 million of them. Not all at once, but day by day, blessing by blessing, interaction by interaction, the science shows gratitude is contagious. Let's make it a civic epidemic, a national habit, a daily discipline, a way to reclaim our shared humanity, not as Democrats, not as Republicans, not as independents, not as tribes locked in battle, but as Americans, as neighbors, as people whose fates are tied together whether we acknowledge it or not. This Thanksgiving, today, let's begin a practice that lasts long after the leftovers are gone. Let's practice gratitude, real gratitude, every day. And let's see what kind of country it helps us become. Happy Thanksgiving, my friends. I just want you to know I'm grateful for you. Be safe. Take care. Until next time. Justice Redesigned. Steve Teskey.